or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
I just want to say I love the leader. And you're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener supported talk radio on the internet. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for free. It was once upon a time, it was $5 a month. But if you like what you hear, do use Patreon. There's a Patreon link there. Get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website. Now, I've been informed that it's all kind of changed now, so I'll let you go into freedomslips.com and have a look for yourself. Now, thanks for listening to Revolution Radio. You know, this is listener funded, and the archives are fantastic. You can get all the host shows there. This is Shiny Side Out with David Mackey, just to reiterate that. And this is show number 516.
610 and 500.
It's the second hour of our 2-hour program. And we're talking about the hypothesis, but Mackey, describe what we're saying today.
So we've looked at the hypothesis over several shows, cycles, over several weeks. We looked at what it all means, and we discussed it. But what if it is all completely true? What are the implications if the hypothesis actually describes reality in a fairly accurate fashion? You know, within a fairly high degree of confidence, as it were, statistically speaking. What does that actually mean for all of us? Well, it means that a whole bunch of other things are wrong, right? And just to be clear, we are not by any stretch of the imagination suggesting that we have the truth at our disposal, but we looked at ancient teachings. We looked at modern or cutting edge science, right? And if you marry it all up, it all makes sense. It's in the intervening 5,000 years or 10,000 years or even 15,000 years since last cataclysm, we've been subject to many lies and many manipulations. I don't think anybody would necessarily argue with that, and we are now coming face to face with some realities. And whenever the truth reared its head, or maybe a more accurate depiction of the world as we know it, whenever that reared its head, it would be stomped upon and destroyed and killed off and crusaded against, etc., because it threatened the parasites, but also the control class, or even the control individual, if you will. Because that is the critical thing to understand here. We are not, if the hypothesis is correct, we are not in the world we should be in. We're not living in the reality that we should be inhabiting. We're just not. And we need to get out of here. So reincarnation, Dave, is a thing. And if reincarnation is a thing, right, then a lot of the other things that we are taught religiously are wrong. Not the ethos of the religion. Love your neighbor, be good to each other. But the minor details and the protocols and the rituals and all that stuff, that is wrong. Right? And certainly establishments like the Catholic Church, that's wrong. But any organized body of any kind in that space, religion, philosophy, etc., that's wrong. Hey, that's our opinion, right? We were just saying, what if the hypothesis was correct, right? It shouldn't exist. There's no one between you and a creator. There's just you and if there's a creator, right? Now you can look. If you're an atheist, that's okay. That's what you believe because you can't prove it. You can't prove there is no God. You can't prove there is a God either. But looking at the world, very difficult to explain a whole bunch of stuff unless there's more to this world than what we can see and touch, Dave. But yeah, so a lot of the people involved with these organizations, religions and otherwise, have a vested interest in seeing things stay the way they are. Have a vested interest, of course they do, right? These institutions are self-perpetuating. That's like a massive bureaucracy, and nothing is eternal. Nothing ever lasts forever. We know this. Empires rise and fall. Religions come and go. I mean, our religion has been around. Christianity, I'm talking about 2,000 years. Islam, 1,400 years. Judaism, let's call it 5,000 years. The Zoroastrians are still around. There's about 100,000 Zoroastrians. They've been around, for about 7 to 5,000 years. Not too many people believe in Mithras anymore. Not too many people practice the old pagan, what we like to call pagan religions.
It kind of had a little bit of a
revival, yeah.
A revival, yes. But it's not to the extremes that it was once practiced.
No, it hasn't. I mean, sure. In fact, good friends of the show are practicing with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to make a distinction here as well. Because people always confuse the pagan religions, and I hate the word, but at least everybody knows what I'm talking about, with devil worship or Satanism.
That's right. That's not right.
It's not at all that. The Wiccans are not devil worshippers. They're not Satan. In fact, they have nothing to do with the devil. I mean, they don't even think there is a devil because they don't believe there's a Christian entity either.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different belief system, right? And it believes in the divine female, right? And a few other things which have completely fallen out of use over the millennia of patriarchy.
And look, the heaven and hell, the hell component was derived from the Jewish script, which the original wording describes like a fire pit.
Yes,
that's
correct.
And when they say the pits of hell, no, it was just like a fire pit.
Yeah, and there's no one there in eternal torment, even according to the Christians. We've spoken about this before. You look it up yourself. You think, and the same with Islam. Islam is a very young religion as well. I mean, Buddhism has been around for a long time. Hinduism has been around for a long time, right? They've been around for in some way, shape, or form, right? And there's some older religions yet that are still being practiced in the world, which you don't know about, right? Because they're just too small.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Right, you never would have heard of it. Funny thing is this: there was this really point in case here. There's this temple in India, and scientists or historians or whoever, Indian people from India, they would go there and look at it. Oh, it's abandoned. It's really let's try to decipher what this is about. And until one day, they came to this temple complex. Again, they thought it was abandoned for hundreds of thousands of years, and it was packed. It was packed. And they go, what's going on here? Well, this is where we celebrate our whatever, blah, blah, right? You think
You've just never been here on the day.
But yeah, we've been here. We've been coming here for thousands of years to celebrate our XYZ, whatever it was, right? And I think it was an erotic kind of thing. But it doesn't matter. The point is, I mean, even in India, Indians from India going to the temple complex, thinking it's abandoned, and then one day, by pure chance, they come and it's packed with people that go there to worship. So, people built Göbekli Tepe. We have no idea why or how,
and buried it.
Why, right? And then they buried it. Why? I don't know. So, and to a similar extent, we have these religions buried within our society because we don't know about them because we're not part of it, right? And people go to all kinds of meetings all the time, all kinds of worshipping or otherwise congregations, right? And you don't know what your neighbor is. And it has to be very clear on something as well. Satanism and or devil worship, right? That's a uniquely Christian phenomenon. Or
oddly.
Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, because most other religions don't see the world this way, or most other philosophies or other people in the world don't see the world this way. Christians see the world very clearly. Now, oddly enough, in a duality between good and evil, but there shouldn't be, because in Christianity, in any of the Abrahamic religions, there's only one God, all powerful. Everything flows from that one God, including evil, right? But the way the Bible or the Quran or the Torah or Talmud read, that doesn't seem to be. It seems to be a dual kind of thing between evil, Satan and the good God. So
then you've got secret societies, which have existed for thousands of years. And also witchcraft.
Completely.
There is a surprising amount of unseen groups of people gathering to practice that. And I knew a white witch. I don't mean her skin color. So a good witch. And I'd presumably and mistakenly arrived at their house one day when they had a gathering, and it didn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. What people believe in, as long as the outcome is relatively good. Yeah, for those around. What about in Haiti, Mackie?
Oh, look, you have these it's called voodoo or voodoo, or there are other words for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where and this goes back to ancient African religions, which are mixed in with some Christian beliefs and some other beliefs as well. So it's
because those islands were populated by pirates and the slave trades. That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's look, the spirituality is a very fluid field. And this is all spirituality. Spirituality, belief systems, faith, all of that is very, very. It's situational, meaning you take what you need, right, and you even create what you need if you have to. Sometimes you create things as a synthesis, and that's sort of what voodoo is to some extent, or hoodoo as well. I mean, there are many forms of splinter religions. I mean,
hoodoo,
healers.
What you don't dare do, people.
Yeah, that's right. The glass, fire walkers, snake charmers. I mean, how do you explain all of that stuff? Well, it's spiritual. It's beyond the realm of this. And if you're an atheist, like I said earlier, then you have to believe that too.
The Australian native inhabitants, the custodians of the land, for at least 80,000 years, had their own belief system, and they spoke about Biami and his 3 sons landing on the planet making humans. Yeah, and not very far from where I live, apparently this took place.
We actually went to
we did a field trip,
like a place, and we saw Mount what's the name?
Space Rock, Mount Yango.
Yango, that's it. Yeah, it's really odd. It's an odd mountain, and Paul Hovey, good friend of the show, so he actually took a picture of it and then folded it over. It's
symmetrical,
completely. Anyway, so I'd love to dig there, but look, so that's one aspect. I mean, all or most religions would be wrong. Not the core. Make no mistake here, the core is usually right. It is the corruption and the misappropriation of the spiritual belief systems that we've seen over thousands of years that has led us, to this world.
The turn
but
profit.
The core,
mm-hmm.
But the core. If you look at the core of most belief systems, not all necessarily, but most, there's good stuff there, and it's usually very similar as well, right? There's good stuff there, but there's a much more important component to the hypothesis. So let's say reincarnation is a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all, on this wheel of reincarnation, our highest goal must be to get out. But within the wheel of reincarnation, we're living in a multiverse. Okay, so this universe has got an infinite number of equivalents, which are just slightly different or very different. But it's a potentially infinite number of multiverses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're stacked in 5 dimensions, right? So we have 3 dimensions we live in. There's the dimension of time, which I like to call duration, and then on a right angle to that is the 5th dimension, on which all of these multiverses are stacked upon. And then on top of that, when you go to a higher level of existence, right, you go beyond the multiverse, right? You go into higher levels and planes of existence where I think our true home lies. Where concepts like time and space might not be non-existent, but become irrelevant. I mean, let me give example. We talk about infinite and we talk about eternal. Yet we have no idea to concept. We can't conceptualize it. You know what I mean? Like we say infinite, but our brain doesn't know what that means. We say eternal, and our brain doesn't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
It means a very, very long time or very, very long anything.
But we don't know how. We don't know how to imagine how long that is. Just like the word infinite. How big is the universe? If you say infinite, great. How big is that in my head? Can't possibly imagine it.
No, you can't exactly.
Can you go the distance? No.
But on once you go past the multiversal 5-dimensional construct, your intellect or our intellect might be enough to cope with those terms, for example. And I believe, this is me, and I base my belief on a whole bunch of ancient beliefs foremost the Aboriginal dreaming or dream time, which is best translated as every when. It is a state of the eternal now, in many ways. Okay, that's sort of my best way of understanding it. I'm sure it's flawed, but that's the best way I can understand it. The eternal now. So if that is true, then it's this multiverse, like, and again, an infinite multiverse, right? An eternal multiverse potentially, right? But that is still not the reality that we need to inhabit. We need to go higher. We need to go to the next level there, right? And are there any levels beyond that? Maybe. If it's a natural system, chances are it's infinitely regressed. There is no end to it. And we're stuck here somehow. Why? I don't know. But nonetheless, here we are. And everybody in ancient times, right, says, well, our highest goal must be to get out of here. And all the ancient peoples have things like astral travel and shamanic rituals, which move you beyond this realm of existence, so away from this 5-dimensional multiverse into the next level. And
they also all identify the center of the third eye / pineal gland.
Correct.
As being a crucial component of the escape.
Yeah. And even if you're from a culture that doesn't have any pine cones, the shape, the sacred shape that you see everywhere still resembles the shape of the pine cone. It's of course the pineal gland. You could call it the lotus gland for all I care.
Yeah.
But the point is that we all the cultures look at it and go, hey, this is something special happening there. Now, see, this is the thing though. I'm not talking about these. I don't think these shamans or these wise men or women, they traveled to other universes in the multiverse. I don't think that's what they did at all. You can, and I think that's what Bigfoot and Sasquatch does. But I think what they did, they actually managed to go into the higher realms of existence, right? That's where you go when you dream. I don't think you go into the multiverse when you dream. I think you go into higher levels of existence, right? The multiverse is our cage, right? Not just this one, but the entire multiverse. And the cages are segregated yet again. But I do believe there's a lot of slippage. I think it's a very porous prison. So I might be here today and I'm in a different multiverse tomorrow. In a different universe tomorrow. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. It happens. I reckon it happens to all of us all the time. We just don't notice the small differences. Like sometimes it's little things like, I could have sworn I put my gloves over here. Or I could have sworn I drove the car in the garage. Or I could have sworn my office was at the end of the corridor. Or whatever, right? Or I could have sworn Mandela died in prison 20 years ago. Or anything like that, right? I mean, obviously, the more drastic the changes, the further you're where you are from your original universe. But the multiverse is still your cage, right? And you know what else it means, Dave? No. If there is a multiverse, right, a 5-dimensionally stacked multiverse, it means there is no such thing as fiction. Fiction does not exist. Why? Because everything that you can imagine. Yeah, everything that you can imagine and cannot imagine, anything that is anything that's on the spectrum exists. So if you read a book, take, I don't know, 80 Days Around the World or whatever, and that happened somewhere. Sherlock Holmes, that happened somewhere, or is happening somewhere. That is the definition of an infinite multiverse. It must have everything in it. So we are not actually writing fiction, we are channeling other universes, is what we do.
So, all right. So the thing that is creating all of this, if I relate it to, let's say an AI ultimately controlling everything, and all of the inputs from all of the multiverses, for instance, all contribute to the virtual environment that we live in. So without anyone being the last person in it, and then you leave, there's nothing. Every person within it creates it. And that does go some way to explaining that, the power of positivity and creating your own existence and your own future by wishing it into place, because you think about it often enough and you can make it happen. That makes it a hell of a lot of sense when you start to think about it like that. Yeah. If we were all trapped within a virtual, world, we can still make all the technology we have. We can still do this. We've done this ourselves within a product that we've made for ourselves. We've made a virtual environment called Minecraft, and a person made an 8-bit computer that plays games in it actually writing the code and developing all the machinery to make it work. So if it was a huge real life sized computer, it would have been a city block size. They actually made it physically work. So that's some crazy right there. So and yes, Pepsi, we love the AI too.
I love the AI the most.
You know, I was just thinking about the AI and talking about it.
No.
So the wonderful AI out there. No,
I was thinking about the AI. So you couldn't have possibly thought about it because I was thinking about it.
Well, I thought about it first.
And the AI. They're like an awesome. They're a power couple, dude. They're a power couple. Mic drop.
All right. So I think when Elon Musk was talking about us having a chip to join the AI, in fact, forcing it sounds crazy. I know it's crazy.
No, it's not at all. That's the next. That is the next step. I mean, what else could there possibly? But once you've done that, game over.
Yeah,
my friend.
So I know it's good. You know. So why would you want to join it if you were then forever trapped by it?
Because we love it.
Bessie says I loved the AI last night. That was after I did. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking it before.
I was with the leader at the time.
No, really? How is that possible? Because the leader was just looking over my shoulder. Thank you very much.
Oh boy. I think we could do a whole hour on that. So if you dispute the fact that we live in a virtual environment, then just research the Planck distance and understand that the entire universe is quantized, which means it's digital, which means it's not analog, it's not whatever we want it to be. Einstein was completely right. It's all time is in a box, and you can't change where the time will take you. The timeline's predetermined, despite you being non-deterministic. It's still a thing. And it doesn't make a lick of difference what you do. You're going to end up in the situation that is your timeline.
Yeah. So, then the highest.
Amiga Locos suggests is making a suggestion here that the AI is female.
You know what?
I actually don't mind. I'm non-gender specific. It's just funny. I do love the interaction in the chat room. Thank you so much for chatting, everyone. So, and if you're listening to this, canned or even live, if you're live, come in the chat room. If this is canned from the archives or YouTube or wherever, then come into the chat room next time if you can. Revolution.radio.
It's awesome stuff. But yeah, look, it must be our highest goal, our highest aim to escape the, essentially, this reality. That must be our highest goal to get out of here and go into the real world, as it were, whatever that means, right?
That would be,
honestly, I don't know. That
would be a pleasurable experience. So if you imagine this was a video game, easiest said, like an arcade game where you had to put 20 cents or a quarter if you lived in America. You put 20 cents in or a quarter, and you play the game, and you got 3 lives, for instance, right? And you play it, and you're reincarnated every time because you keep all your accomplishments, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lost your 3rd life, and your being can walk to another machine, right? You could play in a different multiverse, yeah.
Yeah.
And with a different set of challenges, you could do that.
Sure.
Right, but the consciousness that walks from one machine to the next or one multiverse to the next is still the same one. And it is this that I believe people retain. And it's that place that I think we dream to when we go dreaming. We dream in that location. It's outside of the virtual nature of this. That's kind of where I'm really at. And the only way that I can say, like we've discussed in the prior show, about trying to discuss 3 dimensions to 2-dimension people in like Flatland's example. This is the same thing. Well, I'm using the terminology that we have in our vocabulary, only enabling me, that only allows me the simplest explanation to try and tell you what it is. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to use what I know.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of close, but I don't think it's right.
No, because I mean, we're trying to ultimately describe something that is completely incomprehensible to us in many ways.
Mhm.
We can speculate at it,
Mm.
but whatever terminology we try to use within this frame of
Ezekiel's
reference
wheels within wheels.
Yeah, again, what does it really mean, right? What does it look like?
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. But the point is that there is something there, right? And we just need to understand at some point what that is, and we will. And we will. I do believe we will probably afford glimpses when we die. It sounds a bit dire, but as you do pass through the lens, as it were, in my opinion.
It's a bit late to discuss it with anyone after we've done that, but
Well, there's that, right? But ultimately, though, I think there's a certain moment of realization, I imagine, because I had one when I was a child. I had a moment of significant realization, right? And it was quite something, to be honest.
I felt like I connected to the Akasha record once.
Yeah, the only thing I remember, Dave, I've told you many times, is that I thought, oh, right, that makes sense.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, well, that's okay then. But I only remember that feeling of it being okay. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything else.
It's like you got plugged into a mainframe, or sorry, to it, and let's say the AI, and you had all of the knowledge everywhere, but there was no reason to ask a question because you already had access to the answer.
Yeah.
So, if you knew everything that Google knew right now, what would you think for the 3 seconds you were connected? You don't. You become disconnected from it, and then you go, oh, right, and you don't retain it. You connected, you're online for a second, like when your phone goes offline, you can't do all those things you used to do.
Yeah.
Being online for that time, I kind of even felt almost weightless, and it was an experience and a half. So, yeah, I don't know if it's any way of being able to. I couldn't say how I got there or what was that moment. How did it get created? Can I repeat it? No. I've tried.
Well, yeah, and again, the harder you try, the more it slips away. It's like
that's right.
Funny pictures. We have to relax your eyes, etc. But ultimately, I'll be honest with you, it's really it was for me. I was very young, right? I remember this. I was very, very young, but it was such an incredible experience to have, I guess. Where it's everything made sense. I only remember the feeling of, oh right, oh that like it felt like oh that makes okay. I understand that. It's easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like, right? I don't know. It was a very strange.
Look, I believe the Akashic record is a real thing. I believe you actually can connect to it, and I believe people connect to it all the time. Also believe that small groups of people can create small pods of people and connect like musicians.
We know it's real, Dave.
It is a thing. I know. But not everyone does. So I feel not only can you connect locally within a small pod, but you can connect to the greater I don't know, objective of creating, connection to the Akasha record, the all-knowing everything.
Yeah, see Edgar Casey, who was called the Sleeping Prophet. If you if you haven't heard of him, just look him up. But Edgar Casey connected to it frequently. When he was a young child, he got really, really sick. I mean, he was dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he in his feverish state, he told his mother, "Go and see this apothecary in this town." He's American, and she did. His mother went, and she described the condition that Edgar Casey was in, a child then, right? And he said, "Okay, well, try this." And he gave her this remedy, this medicine, if you will. And it saved his life. It completely saved his life.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, he has been. He's dead now. But when he was alive, he would go and he would see people. People would come to him, and they would ask for help or whatever. And he would go into a trance. He had no recollection of what it was that he did at all. But he would go into this trance, and before he knew it, these people would be helped. He never charged anything for it.
Mm.
Okay, he never charged any money for it. And there's now an Edgar Casey Foundation to carry on his work. And he helped put, allegedly, again, as far as we know, thousands of people with that. So that's the thing. And he said, in his lucid state, he thought he was accessing the Akashic record, which is the collective unconscious of all of us.
Yeah, that's right. So I use an example about the creation of television. In England, colour television was invented in unison with black and white television being invented in the US. At the same time, there was no funding for the colour one, and it disappeared. Funding happened in the US. Someone believed that this could be a thing, and look where we are today. We've progressed past television pretty much for the best extent of what it was at its height, and now we have the internet. But the legacy is the display panels that we use today. Some of the methodology, some of the programming, we're still kind of moving away from that. But in the end, it'll just end up us talking to each other. You know what I mean? How we've gone. If you can get access to the all-time, the whole universe in a box. So that's the one of the multiverses, a singularity. Right? If you can get access to all the thoughts within that, that to me would be sufficient enough. Whether or not you extend out past that, I'm not sure. I certainly, with my paranormal experiences in my life, I would be pleased to be contacted and made aware of how it is that I'm supposed to reconnect with it or better myself further, The things that I think are totally important. When Meki and I talk about this world is profit-driven, and the profit-driven world that we live in is to its own detriment. It will eventually implode on itself. You can't continue to do that in an endless world of expansion. It's just not possible. You can't sell more stuff to more people once you go past the amount that you've sold. If you've sold something to everybody, what happens to your business then? You have to make your product, something that they'll want every day. It's disposable, and therefore you can perpetuate your business then. But if you've sold something to everyone and that's the end of that, what do you do then? Just fold the company up? You can't keep loaning money out to expand the money base, right? I think digital currency is the first step away from here, Meki, to in that solution towards where we might be. But ultimately, the endeavor is where we should go, right? I completely agree. If we were spacefaring, then you're on a spaceship for a long time, and there'll only be, social credit, effort bonus, right?
Yeah.
That's it. There's you don't make money to go home and spend it somewhere. It's just, you want replicator rations, you've got to do your work, right? That's it. I can't see a world outside of the Star Trek world at the moment, but I wish, how I wish, Meki, that we could find enlightenment and connect to the Akashic record, discover more about the multiverses, and physics be damned, right? Physicists are slowly coming around from being a single universe, the rest of it's preposterous, to hang on a minute. I know. I think we're living in a simulation. So if we're living in a simulation, what's outside of the simulation? That was the first question. We don't know. How many simulations deep are we? If we have created a simulation within a simulation, like Minecraft, and we've simulated a computer inside it, the next thing is you're playing The Sims at home, and the Sims start becoming sentient and questioning where they are. What's outside of my environment? Hey, did you casually talking to another Sim? Did you know we live in a simulation? Oh, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Right? We're the watchers in that environment.
100%, and that's the holy grail of AI research. Right? I mean, I don't know if you want that, but that's where we're going.
I don't know.
Really cool movie out recently called Free Guy.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
Which is exactly what Dave just described.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's his name? I really like him. He always plays himself in every movie.
He was in Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
Yeah. He's also Deadpool. Completely.
Oh yes.
I'm blanking on his name completely.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, but he's always himself, right? I mean, he plays this non-player, an NPC, right?
NPC.
In a video
Non-playable
game,
character.
Yeah, and he becomes self-aware.
Yep.
And he goes, oh, what's going on now? There's another movie which goes even further. It's called The 13th Floor, where you have simulations on top of simulations on top of simulations, but the entities or the intelligences managed to level up. So they managed to transcend their reality and go into the next layer of reality through the transfer interfaces. Ryan Reynolds, thank you.
That's it.
Beautiful, thank you very much. Quite right. And yeah, so if you haven't seen The 13th Floor, that's a really, 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 really good visualization exercise of what these simulations on top of simulations look like. Because the simulation, which you don't know, you think it's the real world, creates a simulation, and then they go and visit it, right? And then, as the movie goes on, they realize that they're a simulation as well, and then goes to the end of a simulation, and it's like this like Tron-like wasteland.
I haven't seen it. What's it called?
Yeah, The 13th Floor.
13th Floor. I remember buildings that didn't have a 13th floor.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's really kind of the point, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, look, if you get a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. It's really, really well made. And fun. It's fun too.
Oh.
But yeah.
It's certainly going to be on my list now.
It better be. But yeah, so that's where we are, right? We're looking at all of these things, and we see it. And you have to understand that we need to do whole bunch of stuff. If the hypothesis, again, I go back to it. If the hypothesis is real, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there is any hint of reality to it, then we should act accordingly. And it must become our highest priority to get out of here. We must do whatever we can to get out of this reality matrix, right? That is our prime motivator, or should be. Go on.
Yeah. So I wonder how we'll look back upon this time in history, because everyone believes everything's sorted out. We've got everything we've ever wanted. Blah blah blah. This is that. Freedom turned into control really quickly over a couple of years, and they're sitting around sort of like the Wolf of Wall Street at the in the Gentleman's Club, laughing how they've been able to transition us rather quickly into this control environment from what we believed we had freedom, the illusion of freedom, in the illusion of a democracy. But it's not truly representative government at all when you think about it. Right. And how quickly they did this. If I was to look, if we'd completely transitioned the governance of people into a moneyless environment, right, in a governance model, and we look back to now, we would be appalled at what we have.
Yes.
And I say this a lot. Why did we never protest? Coming from, say, the George Orwell, 1948 era to now, which was like an exponential increase in controls, we never ever protest against them.
Even not true.
Well,
not true.
when all of the insiders came out to tell us about what was going on, and even more recently, the Facebooks and the Twitters and the deplatforming and the cancer, no one seems to care as long as it doesn't affect them.
You're correct. Now.
Yes, now. That's right.
Accurate statement. The thing is this, though, and this is something that people forget when we talk about these things. In the 19th century, specifically, right, the height of, I guess, the the rational thought movement. After a few hundred years after the Renaissance, but people, like philosophy was a big thing, and individual responsibility and all these wonderful things. There was a huge uprising against the class, or the leading classes, right? The parasites, and specifically against the banking sector in America. Even more specific in America, there's something called the banking wars that took place in the United States. These days, completely ignored by history. I mean, no one talks about it at all because it is just, I guess it's too painful for the bankers to even contemplate that, they could have been deposed at one point. They could have lost. Andrew Jackson made it his life's work to oppose the bankers, to oppose what he felt were, the elite, and they were destroying his country. He was terrible. He was terribly upset about that, right? And that's what happened exactly. And it is the complacency we feel these days, right? Complacency that we all have come to, I guess, accept as what life is, has been bred. It has been bred into us. It has been bred into us deliberately, right? We're not like this because we're born this way. We're like this because they made us this way.
That's right.
Okay, we have been educated or indoctrinated, really, into a state of complete acquiescence. We just accept, and it is the food that we eat. It is what we're taught in school. It is the drugs. Think about this, Dave. Think about this. We're pumping our children full of near-food experiences, right?
That's right.
Food that is so laden with chemicals and sugars and artificial this and that our kids can no longer act normally. Call them ADD and this and that. And in order to combat this, we give them drugs. So the drugs we gave them in the food have altered the behavior, so we give them more drugs to level it out, right? Or to make it more normal. So we are drugging our... Go on.
But Mecky, you missed the timeless wonder of the whole thing, you see. See, we plant the seeds, right? Nature grows the seeds, then we eat the seeds. Oh, no. So big business produces the chemicals, and then the pharmaceutical company then gives us the chemicals to counteract those, and then we eat the food again.
Okay. But yeah, Dave is not wrong, right? And this is really the kicker. He's not wrong at all. And that is where we are. This is we've now accepted this as, okay, well, this is life, right? Oh, really?
Just the fact that we're eating near food. We're all eating protein, like not all of us. There's a lot of people that have contributed to the success of near food experience companies.
Oh, yeah.
I, for one, have eaten quite a lot of it. And I used to delight in it, being a treat. But, if you're doing it every time you go driving and you go through a drive-through somewhere, question yourself, is this the right thing that I'm doing? Right?
Yes. Completely.
Because you realise that it takes very little time to prepare something to eat. The amount of calories per day is usually consumed within one meal or greater at one of those outlets. And so the rest of the food you're eating is overeating. And the food you're eating from there is not... It's not accepted by dietitians the world across as being the correct diet to eat. It's not a healthy diet.
Yeah. Well, our grandparents had no choice, or my grandparents had no choice but to eat organic food because there's nothing else. Organic wasn't even a thing. It's just food that grows, wherever you put it.
Yeah, that's right. What about lard? There was always a tin of lard next to the
Of course.
The
my
oven.
mom makes lard still. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
And we put it, it's called Schmalz mit Kleben. You fried onions in it too if you want, and you put it on your bread instead of butter. But
it's just the animal fats from all the cooking you've done.
Yeah. The thing is this, though, right? We have now come to a point where we are willingly, or not willingly, where we have been so compromised, right, through our food, through the drugs, and then it doesn't stop. The drugs don't stop there. I mean, the vaccinations come in, and untested vaccinations, other medicines that are being overprescribed. America's in a drug crisis because of the drugs that were overprescribed by the establishment.
Yes, so antibiotics grew. It was a growth industry where it actually grew new viruses and bacterial problems because people wouldn't complete the courses properly. But when 99.9% of it is eliminated, that 0.1% can become immune to the antibiotic, then creating superviruses. We did that. Golden Staph was the best example of using, rather than steam to clean the hospital floors, we used antibacterials.
Yeah.
And we created a super bacteria that could consume human skin.
Yeah. Guess what I used to clean my house? Steam.
Steam.
Not everybody can do that. I get it, but
Yeah.
see, so we've got. But then there's the painkiller prescription crisis that America went through. You know,
and the
where
opioids too.
Soccer, but soccer moms are now, addicted to drugs. And
Opioid dependent.
And see, this is something that.
Well, we did the same thing with tranquilizers.
Yeah, and it has been used for hundreds of years. The British East India Company was engaged in the opium wars with China, where they tried to addict the entire Chinese population to opium. Vietnam was the perfect vehicle to bring opium and heroin, really, into the United States. You know, and South America. There are not very many poppy flowers or coca trees in the continental United States.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes from somewhere, but it's big business, and they're bringing it in. They're bringing it in to do all the things that Dave has just questioned. Dave goes, why don't we stand up anymore? Because the vast majority of us are no longer able to.
Yeah.
We're no longer able to stand up and be counted because they have destroyed almost every single foundation of a normal, healthy life that we used to have. If someone from the 50s, I'm thinking of the Captain America movie here. If someone from the 50s or 40s or 30s, whatever, came and went and visited America today. So you take in New York or
wow. If they went to Milwaukee, they would just, they wouldn't like themselves.
Around, this is, what did you do to my country, they would say.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much almost any nation in the world. The question will be, what did you do to my country? What the hell did you do? And what did you do to the world, in fact? What did you do to the world? And the answer is, well, they have shaped it in such a way that they are now completely controlling it. That's the game. The game is control. Fear is the number one control mechanism, and then everything else follows under fear. Right? I mean, number one, fear. That's it. They have made us. I mean, are there any more murders than there used to be? Well, not really. Not as a percentage of the population. There are a lot more people there, so there are a lot more murders, a lot more crimes, sure, but not everywhere, right? But it's highlighted in the news. If it bleeds, it leads. If there's a fear news item, right, or catastrophe, or someone got hurt or killed, or whatever, that will lead the news. That will be the number one news item because people are fascinated by it, but it also drives the fear agenda. And fear is what prevented the awareness cascade in 2020. I reckon when the Aboriginal elders got together, right, at Uluru, I reckon that could have been a trigger point.
Yeah.
If we hadn't been in the state that we were in. The pandemic put us into a state of fear as a species. We lived in a state. I mean, it was all pervasive. It's everywhere. I can't trust anyone. Can't leave the house. Oh, I'm going to weld your door shut so you can't get out. Right? And you go, wow. And this is a disease. Well, for all intents and purposes, it isn't really that deadly. It isn't. I mean, it is. It's long-term effects are terrible. In my opinion, it's a depopulation agenda here, which is the worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
The worst part of it. But nobody was talking about that. Nobody was saying, oh, this is probably part of depopulation. I didn't say it until I saw the studies. Right?
Yeah.
But I saw the studies, and there they were. And, oh, no. Well, male fertility increased by 600%. Whoa! That's a lot of percent.
Yes, it is.
So where does that leave you? Well, it leaves you with very few options. Very few choices, and you feel painted in the corner. I get it, right? I do understand it. It's not an easy thing.
Yeah, so I wonder, Becky, and I brought this up the other day, and it was all of our indoctrination is just to keep us in servitude, yes, to the elite.
Yes.
There is no other purpose. They don't say, oh, you too can become elite if all follow these three simple steps, right? There isn't any of that, and I have to say that the societies that we collectively live in are only there to serve the parasitic class. There is no other reason.
No.
It isn't.
You're right.
And what's going on with the Great Reset is to core the broaden. It's the thin edge of the wedge, but to broaden the gap where it would never be attainable. If you own nothing and you're only ever simply going to work to pay rent, effectively, and eat just to exist with no hope and no gain, there's no furthering your life, there's nothing. If that's the only purpose to this Great Reset, then they totally won. I mean, there isn't a stakeholder, economy is where the people who are at the top stay at the top, and everyone else is gapped to the bottom where the bottom feeders. Now that design sounds great if you're at the top.
Yeah.
But remember, Mickey, the difference was when we grew up, when some of our listeners grew up, we were taught you work hard, you can accomplish something. You work hard, you can acquire things, because that was part of what the Western society was all about. You can get a house, you can have 2.3 children, that's national average at the time. You can have more than one motor vehicle, and sure, it's a polluting existence, and I don't want to drive down the left-hand street too hard there, but the right-hand street taught us what we can achieve. And if you work really, really hard, well, it wasn't going to get us to their doorstep, right? To the elite's doorstep, but it was going to make our life reasonable.
We had a chance at a good life. Yes.
Yes. But rather than going to the end of the bread queue, right, or queuing for a year to get a bicycle that goes forward, this is what we had. We had the opportunity. Our choice was you either rise to the middle, or you let it slip and you fall to the bottom. But now there is only going to be one level. It's just, this is it.
Yes. And unfortunately, that's exactly it. We have no. It is no longer possible.
The design is in
right?
place. The design is in place for this to be the thing that happens.
Yeah, but see, again, it
So
doesn't
comply.
have to happen. There's still something that can be done, right? In my opinion.
A huge war.
Not necessarily. I mean, all I'm
Meteor
saying is
impact.
They're
my go-tos.
If we all realize
Mhm.
what's going on, right? If we all realize it, and we all get together in those, I guess, more or less, then we can change the outcome. It can be changed. The outcome is not a foregone conclusion, right? It really isn't, and that's why fear is being used so much. But we allow it to happen. We not only do we allow it to happen, we also are we worship these people, right? Or these we give them power by emulating them, wanting to be like them, right? And that's where it all falls down. You know how quickly things would change if we stopped consuming differently, if we stopped behaving differently. In a heartbeat. It would what? We're not selling anything anymore, sir. Well, what do people want to buy now? Right? Oh, we don't know.
It didn't test well, sir.
It didn't test well, yeah, essentially, right? And that's really where we are.
What did the study group say?
What did the study group say? Well, I think we should save the planet, sir. That's a good one. But yes, so we still have the power in many ways.
Yeah. Well, look, I always suggest that you vote with your feet.
Yeah, completely.
It's the only way to do it, because money in a profit system is the only outcome that solves problems. Remember how we talked about climate change and throwing money at it even though it's throwing money at something. At least we tried. We did something. Yeah. It's like if a car's coming, you can step out of the way or not. You've got a choice, yeah? But stepping out of the way, even though the car wasn't coming, didn't hurt you. I think it's really important to remember. And on that, the music's going to start any second. I'm going to invite everybody to join Jer Bear's awesome show after this, and it is After Hours with Jer Bear. And there's the music, and this has been episode 516 of Dave's and Mecky's Shiny Side Out. So we'll catch you next week, and do what you need to do, love who you need to love, and we'll see you next week.